You're tuned in to Steve Megatron on Altered Geek Unlimited.
Hello and welcome to Altered Geek Unlimited. I'm your host, Steve Megatron Phillips, and in this episode of the podcast, we will be talking about quite many things here. What do we mean by that? Well, first on the agenda, I should probably mention, I have relaunched my Altered Geek Unleashed video podcast on YouTube. The first episodes actually started going up around the week of Batman v Superman. I started having one go up that week where I did kind of a rough impromptu, and then I edited on my phone, so it was kind of rough, and I shot it in the dark, kind of, so the video's a little off. As far as visually, it's a little off, and it's it was kind of interesting. Because for one, it was more or less a live reaction to the film after I watched the film. The second episode that is up is actually a review of Justice League vs. Teen Titans, Justice League, Lego Justice League Cosmic Clash, and Star Wars: The Force Awakens DVD review. Now, the DVD review for Star Wars I don't have fully because I have yet to watch the special features, so it's a little bit short. But I do explain about a lot of stuff, and they won't be as long as that episode. That was just me playing around with different features and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. And I've kind of discovered that people my age, and when I say that I mean like around 30 or in their 30s or whatever, the artsy-fartsy, cutesy jump cut stuff that the younger generation does. When I say younger generation, I mean people closer to 20. In their YouTube videos seems to work better with them than it does with somebody of my stature. Because for one, my enthusiasm level and my excitement level isn't quite as high as when they promote themselves on there. My podcast voice is more energetic than my video voice, because my video, I'm self-conscious about seeing myself on the camera. So, being that it's audio, I don't have that stipulation there. But it was kind of fun kind of jumping back into that. I haven't done one of those in a while. It was pretty fun. I do plan on having more of a setup. It was kind of my first run jumping back into that thing. So if there's any kind of topic you guys would like to see me cover in the video podcast, go ahead and let me know. I also plan to do some more of the Google Live Hangouts in the near future, as soon as I work out some bugs with my studio situation and set up my green screen and all that. So I'm kind of pumped to try that stuff out. In the meantime, I have quite a few things planned for this episode, and as I mentioned before, I've been kind of toying with some stuff, and one of the things that's superbly awesome that's come up in the recent week is we are now sponsored by Loot Crate. And you go, gasp? Yes, we are sponsored. It's actually really cool. For those that don't know, Loot Crate is a monthly subscription box service for epic geek and gamer items and pop culture gear. So for less than $20 a month, you get 6 to 8 items that include licensed gear, apparel, collectibles, unique, one-of-a-kind items, and more. You get around like $40 and upwards, depending on the box, worth of items for that low cost of $19.95. They have different premium packages and stuff, so I mean it depends on what level and what packages you're getting. But if you sign up and use the coupon code TBV, you'll save 15% or $3 on your first box. This month's theme is Quest. So what they say about it is it's form a party to explore everywhere from far-off kingdoms to worlds hidden within worlds, with exclusive items from Labyrinth, Harry Potter, History Channel's Vikings, and Uncharted 4. And, of course, they've got t-shirts, loot pins to help equip you for your adventures. The box closes on April 19th at 9 p.m. Pacific, so join the quest. Check it out. So if you've been wanting to check out Loot Crate, you can visit the site www.lootcrate.com/GCRN. So again, that's lootcrate.com/GCRN. The coupon code is TBV. So support them, support us, and unleash the geek in you. And with that, we'll be back after this. Welcome back to Altered Geek Unlimited. I'm your host, as usual, Steve Megatron Phillips, and joining me for this segment is...
TFG and Mike.
And your Lord and Savior, Mike the Birdman Dodd. I'm back.
The Krang of the show.
It's alright. I'm here to save you all. It's okay. I accept
Right.
cash, check, money order, or PayPal.
And direct it to Steve at GeekCastRadio.
That's right. Yes, that's right. All I can think of when you said check, all I can think of is Bugs Bunny and A Loony Beginning. I don't accept checks.
Unless they bounce.
Yeah.
So I guess we should talk about the first thing, since you brought up the Krang in the room, and Shaki.
Yes.
This is Krang.
Yeah. It's kind of sad that he's not there anymore. I mean, I get that they couldn't and didn't. I'm glad they didn't find a replacement for James Avery, but it's just sad not being able to see 87 Shredder anymore.
I was glad that they didn't show him because it was a tasteful throwback to not have him and just have the Krang connection. And
It made sense to have him. I mean, all things considered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I loved the connection that Krang from TMNT 87 is actually a part of this universe.
Yeah, I found that really cool how that's technically canonical now, which means Turtles Forever technically is canonical.
Yeah. They just didn't have this universe to jump to at that time.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was funny that Krang from 87 and Subprime Krang
Gilbert Gottfried,
are related.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
They're like cousin.
Yeah.
And then in the meeting of the two groups of turtles was just spectacular.
In both dimensions, in the 2D world and the 3D world.
And they were breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, pretty much. They were Ferrising it all over the place. I think the coolest homage to the opening 87 intro was Raph actually using, like, 3D 87 Raph actually using a pizza like he does in the original intro.
Yeah, I thought that was actually kind of clever, too.
I thought that was hilarious.
One of the things I really liked about this episode, especially in the opening 5 minutes, is all the music cues were so close to the original 87 series, yet they were updated as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a nice little touch, too. Like, that's a nice throwback to the Fred Wolf stuff.
Yep.
And having everybody back. I mean, for a second, I was wondering, I wasn't sure whether that was Cam Clark as Leonardo. I'm like, oh, yeah, it is.
It is.
I can't remember the name of the guy that plays Donatello.
It's Barry Gordon.
Yeah. So it was nice to see everybody again. That was so cool. And then even seeing how they translated stuff from the 2D to the 3D and 3D to 2D. Mm-hmm. So clever. Even the updated Krang design from 87 into this universe I thought was kind of nice. I would absolutely love if they did for the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive this year from Playmates, if they took that Krang, took that design, and that was the exclusive figure for this year and just retool the Out of the Shadows figures.
Oh, that'd be kind of cool.
I would love to have that Krang body again. I like a canonical, version that's show accurate.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they never canceled
classics.
The classic line. Although, yet this year the Walmart exclusives are going to be the TMNT Secret of the Ooze figures, which
which is okay.
Which, at this point, if you're going to do that, make the Krang and Shredder exclusive to Toys R Us or Walgreens or something. I mean, get your money. People will pay it. Or make it exclusive to San Diego Comic-Con.
Well, you mean Walmart, right? Not Walgreens. Because if they were at Walgreens, they would be astronomically priced.
Well,
no, they wouldn't even have them there.
No.
Well, even if they did Walgreens, because I know for like Marvel Legends, they had Agent Venom there a couple of years ago, and it was a bitch to find.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was so impressed with it, and that's the first episode of the new season I've seen this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I typically wait until the end of the season to watch everything in just one go. Now, is that David Tennant as the Fugitoid still?
Yes. Yeah.
That's so fucking cool. I'm so glad to see him doing more like kind of voice work, and I really hope that he continues on with the show. Which I guess what the hell's going to happen going into season 4? I mean, how far are we?
This is season 4. We're 11 or 12 episodes into season 4 at this point.
How many episodes is it per season again?
I think it's going to be 26 like all the others, but I could be wrong. I would have to actually look it up.
Well, hopefully they'll make it back to Earth and all that stuff.
I would assume that they will, because that's generally okay. So if you look at all the different, you look at the two different series, like 87 and 2003, they essentially do the same thing in every series at
There's
that point.
A gimmick or something.
Yeah, well, you take the 2003 series. Steve and I did a Tooncast Beyond on season 1 of 2003. I know for a fact 2003 does a fast-forward time jump. I know they go into space in 2003. I know they then go back to the sewers. So it's this whole linear thing. Yeah, I mean, it's this whole linear thing that almost every incarnation, whether Nickelodeon owns the thing or not, that Turtles goes through. They have a bunch of stuff with Krang and Shredder or whatever, and then they eventually, they bring in the Utroms and the Triceratons and all that, and that's kind of what they're doing now with this season. So they go into space, and then who knows? Maybe season 5, if it gets a season 5 or season 6, they might time travel. I don't know.
Turtles time would be kind of cool.
Yeah,
I'd be okay with that. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the designs of a lot of the Dimension X stuff. Like, I reviewed the toys a while ago.
Yeah.
And the armor on them is just kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But if they did a Turtles in Time, though, that opens up so many more possibilities. Mm-hmm. Plus, if they wanted to do kind of a cheeky thing, since they have David Tennant doing a voice now as the Fugitoid, if they could somehow get Matt Smith to do a voice even for like an episode, I think that'd be pretty kick-ass.
Or having them watching an episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Or just something like that. Or even get like Peter Capaldi for just like a couple of lines or something like that. That'd be fantastic. But yeah, I mean, overall, I was really impressed with this. I'm just wondering how much more, like, what other gimmicks could this show pull?
I'm sure they've got a bunch of stuff in line and everything else. Like I said, this Triceraton story is probably going to be the crux of season 4 as far as the remainder of it. Like I said, they could do a time jump. I know in the 2003 series they did this thing, the Ninja Tribunal, where it's kind of like think of War World from Justice League, where you've got Mongol and you've got all these people fighting each other kind of thing. So they could do that. There's a ton of stuff that they could.
You know what would be kind of neat? Because I know in the comics years upon years ago, they crossed over with the series. I want to say the guy's name was Eric Larson. Mm-hmm. They crossed over with Savage Dragon.
You mean Jim Larson?
No, I think it was Eric Larson. I'm 99% sure of that. Where they had a character named Savage Dragon. Now, if they could bring over him or Usagi Yojimbo, I don't know whether they've ever done that before on this show.
I know for a fact they have, because I've seen the first 3 seasons. I'm at this point, I'm kind of just waiting to kind of find time to marathon through season 4, but I've seen the first 3 seasons and they have not used Usagi yet, because I know the guy that created him is using him in his own comic stuff. I mean, Usagi hasn't even been in the ongoing series from IDW yet, so I don't know if he ever will be either.
I think that'd be kind of cool if they somehow found a way to cross over that, because now that having series jump over to each other is not an unusual thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because now that we've had the Flash and Supergirl, it kind of opens the door to have this thing happen again. You've had Constantine on Arrow, so you never know, the possibilities there. But I guess with animation, it gets a little tricky because you're transferring mediums, and that's a whole new legalese bullshit thing. So,
well, I mean, Usagi was in the original series, but it's just and he was an original toy from '87. But it's just that the guy who actually like Nickelodeon does not have a right to that character. Like they would have to have it. It's like it's like WWE going to Stephen Amell or vice versa for him to have a match against Stardust, which is anyway. Anything else you wanted to say about the cartoon, Steve?
Well, I was going to say that one of the things I really enjoyed was having Krang in the episode and getting to see him translated, despite the fact that I really wasn't too keen on the new design. Like in his CG version, because he just looked too, I don't know, fat, top heavy.
Yeah.
It didn't look right. That was more so my thing. So I mean, I was glad he was there, and I'm glad he had such a high amount of screen time. Because to me, that was just icing on the cake. I love the character. That was like my favorite character as a kid. So getting to see him in the episode, just I was starting to fan out with it. So fanboy out, and I love the fact that when they make the connection with Subprime, and they're talking, and he's like, "Good job," blah blah blah, and they're like, he's trying to destroy the dimensions, and he's like, "You what? You idiot!" He's like that. He says that's a kind of bumbling idiocy that we banned you for last time, or banished you for last time, and then sends him through the hole, and then he's like, "No, not back there," and then he's gone, and then they banished Subprime to the Mirage,
the comic universe,
yeah, the comic universe where they're just dark, and I thought that was hilarious.
I also liked how those turtles didn't talk.
I thought it was all like textual.
Yeah, it would have been kind of neat had they talked. They had like speech bubbles, or if they brought back Sean Schemmel to come back and do the kind of voices for that. That would have been kind of neat.
Yep. I think my favorite part with the Turtles was Rob Paulson talking to himself.
Yeah, he's like, "You sound weird."
No,
it
didn't sound weird at all, because
he was arguing with himself.
Oh yeah. Because Rob is Raphael. Raphael was always the kind of a snarky kind of guy, and Donnie in the 2012 series does have a little bit of snark, but not as much as 87 Raph, and it's just fun for me watching Rob play off of himself.
And he's like, "Oh, you sound funny." He's like, "Yeah, well, what's with the buck teeth?"
Yeah. And then later he says, "What is it with you guys have?" It was Sean Astin saying this. He said, "What is it with you guys having letters on your belts? What's that about?"
He's like, "Isn't that cute?"
Yeah. Since we are still talking Turtles, there is just a little bit of news I want to bring up. And I know Steve's probably going to kill me for this, but it'll be pretty short here. So IDW has the current ongoing, which has been going for about 4 or 5 years now, since about 2011 or so. And that's they just released issue 56. They've also had micro series focusing on 1 or 2 characters, but it's all connected into the overall arc of the ongoing, and it's not just separate one-shot stories. They've had TMNT Ghostbusters, they've had Turtles in Time, they've had all that stuff. They are now just announced this weekend at Emerald City Comic Con. They're going to have a second full ongoing TMNT universe, which is basically going to focus on the other characters in the comic universe. So it's going to have stories featuring Casey, featuring Nobody, featuring probably Leatherhead, stuff like that. It's going to be pretty awesome. It's going to launch this August. It'll be written by Paul Allor and drawn by Damian Cosero. I think I'm saying that right. With writers Tom Waltz, Kevin Eastman, and artist Bill Sienkiewicz doing backup stories. It will reportedly focus on various characters such as Casey, April, Fugitoid, Old Hob, Nobody, Harold, and Baxter Stockman. It's grown. The IDW TMNT world has grown too large to contain into one monthly title. There are so many fan favorite characters from that series now, and I can't say enough good things about the ID. If you guys have not read the IDW series, start from the beginning and just keep reading, because it's a love letter to the TMNT universe. It really is.
Now, one last thing I want to bring up about the cartoon, the last thing that happened, which was Tiger Claw
coming out of the worm.
Yeah, well, the worm and Tiger Claw were in the 87 universe instead of the current,
right,
which they're supposed to be in, which was kind of interesting. They're like, oh no.
Well, that worm thing had happened previously they did a cameo with the 87 Turtles. I think it was in season 2 or 3, where the worm had hopped dimensions and showed up in the 87 universe. And they're like, what is that? And then it cuts.
I remember that now, yeah.
And then it cut to the fade to black and white, and the episode ended. So what I'm wondering now, after this episode happened, was where, the worm shows up. I'm like, oh, okay, so they're calling back to what they kind of teased before. But then, oh, wait, no, they're adding something, because boom, here comes Tiger Claw. And I'm like, wait, what? Huh?
Which means they're leaving the door open in case they want to do this again.
In case they want to do it again, yeah.
Which I'm totally fine with. As long as it doesn't become stupid gimmicky, I'm totally fine with it.
I don't think it will, because look how long it took them to even do a full-on 87 episode. It took them 4 seasons.
I can see why, maybe, because with Out of the Shadows coming out in just over a month and a half, I can see maybe that's why they're trying to tie it in to get the Turtles hype going. So, timing's coincidental, but still, I mean, I guess if they do another big event, they'll probably tie it to a monument in the Turtles anniversary, be it like the 30th anniversary or 35th or a new movie or something.
Yeah, next year is the 30th anniversary of the cartoon.
They'll do something for that, guaranteed.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Speaking of Turtle stuff, one last thing I want to mention. Randomly today, my good friends over at Playmates sent me Ninja Turtle Nerf guns.
Oh, no.
They're about the weirdest thing I've ever played. They're called T-Blasters. And they like the turtle heads, but they shoot darts. They're really weird, too, because they're not unlike Nerf guns, except when you pull back the hammer, they don't cock, which is so weird. They just, I guess they're loaded to like a spring or something. Mm-hmm. These things are powerful. Seriously, but because they don't cock, the spring isn't not all the energy's already stored up. With this, because it's such a rapid fire release, it's got some real power behind it. Plus, the darts are a lot bigger than Nerf guns too, which is actually kind of neat. Actually, the one I like the most, they sent me Leonardo and Donatello. Donatello's like this weird Mass Effect style double barrel pistol. It's almost like the Marshall 16 shotgun pistol from Call of Duty Black Ops. It's remarkably neat. I'm kind of liking these things. So if you want to do something for cubicle warfare, or if you want something to screw around with your kids, take a picture of these and put them on Facebook. I can show a couple of I'm sorry to sidetrack Steve, since he's talking about this already. A couple of local radio station morning show hosts here in Louisville, the entire studio downtown here, they all have a giant Nerf war, and they all get various, guns and everything else. That'd be awesome to show it to them. So take a picture of those guns and post it on Facebook, and I'll share it with them. I absolutely will.
So, moving on, we have Star Wars Rogue One trailer, which dropped today.
Now, I want to start this off. Steve, I want your opinion. Does this look cool to you?
Yes.
Because I remember when you said, like a year ago, this sounds so stupid. This was the
first and I'm not denying it. Because, what was it? Myself and quite a few other people, actually, were complaining about it. And I saw something from Dan, Movie Revolt, earlier in the day. He says, my thoughts on Rogue One before the trailer. Spin-off Star Wars movies are going to overflood the market. After the trailer, one please.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Like, it looks like the expanding universe novels come to life. Or this looks like Rebels, if it was real.
Yeah. And one of the nice parts is you've got some callbacks. You're going to have, Mon Mothra. You're going to have, Grand Moff Tarkin. You're going to have...
Well, that's actually not Tarkin in there, surprisingly.
No, it's not Tarkin, but he's going to be in it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And they're going to have Vader. They're going to have the bounty hunters. So you'll probably see Guido for once.
Guido, not Guido. One's a racist term.
Whatever.
One of the things I did notice is they had the original Rebel Trooper design. Like when they're going in.
They also have the original Stormtrooper design.
They did. Actually, if you look at, there's actually one part where you see the Stormtroopers, they're going down the street and you see them in like some kind of hover tank. If you look closely, those Stormtrooper helmets are different, which means we're technically seeing generational cross from clone troopers to Stormtroopers. And
but they're close enough to the Stormtrooper.
Amazing.
It's hard to differentiate them, though.
Well, if you look at the helmets, because I'm like a big armorer guy, like I'm not a member of the 501st, but I know enough to look at the armor and be able to tell you things. I got a little bit of nerd chub. I'm just saying, just seeing all the different designs, and I don't know whether those are Shadow Troopers or Death Troopers, the guys that are in the kind of black armor.
The black or the Death Troopers.
That's incredible to see those fully realized, and not just a cosplay at like Comic-Con. Like, it's amazing the level of detail they went into that. Even when you look, calling back to the Rebel hangar, that shot where she's walking in. You can revert. You can turn that shot. I want to say like 90 degrees the other way. And if you do that, that's the same shot from Episode 4 when Luke and Han walk into that bay. That X-wing is right where it should be. That gong droid is right where it should be. That's a level of detail I did not expect. And I
think they're trying to make sure that they hit all the right notes.
Oh, absolutely! Like this, like there's so much about this movie. It seems to make old seem so much more alive. Like, it makes the older movies, I don't know, I think it really adds more depth to the universe, and the fact that it's more or less a Star Wars heist movie is incredible. I mean, and it looks like it's going to be more action than anything else, which is going to be so freaking cool. I mean, I can't wait till they do like a Star Wars spy movie, or literally, hell, give me a crime drama where it's Star Wars bounty hunters. If you had Boba Fett, if you made a Boba Fett movie, if you had it, like, if you could turn it into, like, I don't know, like the movie Domino or something, but with Boba Fett or something, just imagine how cool that could be. Have it be really, really serious. Hell, you can even bring back Tamura Morrison if you want to go back to the Clone Wars era and follow Jango Fett for a friggin' movie. I would so be up for that.
That reminds me that what would be a perfect adaptation to film? Jango and Boba Fett is dead.
I would like to see, there was one book, I can't remember what it was, but it has Darth Vader fighting Boba Fett, and at one point, Boba Fett torches Vader and blows half of Vader's helmet off, and then Vader, like, chokes his ass out. And then they both fight with like friggin' lightsabers. It's so cool. I wish I could remember what the hell that book's called. It was like an old like friggin' Dark Horse book. But there's so much in this they nailed right.
Yeah.
Like, it's so cool. And randomly Forrest Whitaker's in this. So go get him, Ghost Dog.
Yeah.
Well, and he's supposed to be kind of a, it almost seems like a hardened warrior liaison type thing in the Rebel Alliance, and it's kind of funny because some people are now complaining that Rogue One having a female lead, and again Dan kind of makes a comment saying, I'm sure those complaining about Rogue One having a female lead are the same people complaining about how easily everyone gets offended too easily.
Yeah, I mean, that's a weird thing. I mean, I saw, like, I posted an article about this today, and I had some people saying, yeah, it's kind of screwed up when people are complaining about this. Other people are like, oh, it's just them social justice warriors complaining and all this other crap. Man, when did this become a big deal? Who cares? It's a Star Wars movie. I don't care if it's a chick dude or a Wookiee. I just want people kicking ass.
Yeah, and it'll be nice to actually see a Star Wars movie that doesn't revolve around Jedi.
Yes, that's another thing to be excited about. I mean, we don't have to worry about... This will be a movie where you might hear a lightsaber once, and it's not going to be a good...
It'll be Vader.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be Vader. Maybe you might see someone from the Rebels using it, because it's possible. And the only reason I say that is because if you look at Rebels, because that's canon, right? Like,
yep. It takes place right around this time.
Yeah, so... Kanan's got a lightsaber. Ahsoka's got a lightsaber. There's Inquisitors.
Now, before I continue, how far in Rebels have you gotten?
I've seen the finale.
You have seen the finale, then.
Yeah.
So you know all the stuff that's transpired. I know everything as well. I've watched it.
Yeah. So there's a possibility of Grandma Dustbusters going on. So there's a possibility of more Jedi and more Inquisitors existing, but if they focus mainly on the ordinary people of the Rebel Alliance and the Imperials, this could be so cool if handled right.
It's going to be a military movie, basically, instead of what it's... And the nice part is you actually get to see the Death Star being finalized.
Yeah, like, that was so cool, seeing them actually lower the deflector dish, so to speak, in the place for the main kind of, like, Death Star housing.
All I can think of is the radar has been jammed.
Well, they actually do talk about, like, there's one Star Wars expanded universe novel, no longer canon because it's now the Legends crap, but they actually do talk about when they developed the prototype Death Star. They talk about developing it in the Maw installation, which is near Kessel, and I'd be really curious if they're going to have little hints towards stuff like that. Like, I'm really curious to see what new elements will become canon.
So there are rumors that we may see Han Solo in part of this movie.
Well, I guess it'll have to be a digital Harrison Ford.
Either that or the new casting for the younger actor.
I'd be okay with that. I mean, as long as it's not just a "I'm here for no reason" sort of thing. I
don't think Disney will allow that to happen. I'm just here for no reason. No.
What to happen?
What Mike just said, allow it to, just...
No, it'll have a reason because it'll spin off to their...
that's what I'm saying. I don't think Disney will allow the standard Michael Bay cameo where it's like, hey guys, I'm just here. That Disney won't do that crap.
Now, you know what would be really kind of neat for them to do eventually? If they do more of these, like, kind of spin-off movies, if they did one from the Imperial side of the war... If you had one follow a TIE fighter pilot, and you could literally kind of make it, like, I think there was a movie made, like, I want to say it was like obviously decades ago, but I think it was called All's Quiet on the Western Front, and it followed a group of German soldiers that were conscripts. They were forced to fight for the Nazis. Imagine if you did that with Imperials. Basically, you saw the war from, like, a stormtrooper or a TIE fighter's pilot's point of view. Imagine the dog fights you could produce with Star Wars vehicles other than just here's 2 minutes of X-Wings flying around. Imagine a movie with a full 10-15 minute dog fight from a TIE fighter.
That would be awesome.
Seriously, nerd boner engage.
Yep.
Like, if you could have, like, Iron Eagle / Top Gun with Star Wars, that's what I want.
My reaction on Facebook after I saw the Rogue One trailer. Rogue One trailer, when one trailer can outdo anything Warner Brothers and DC attempt in a 2-hour film.
Yeah, pretty much. And they didn't give away the entire friggin' plot either.
Yep, nope.
Batman v Superman. Man, you would not believe how many arguments that has started on my Facebook. Holy shit. That movie was terrible. But anyway. Yeah, like, it's amazing how well the trailers are cut together, and I would argue Rogue One had a way better trailer than Force Awakens. Because Force Awakens didn't really tell you a whole lot. This one gives you enough to get you excited, but doesn't give away specific plot points. I mean, you know it's them stealing the friggin' Death Star plans, but you don't know how it's going to come about.
Mm-hmm.
With like Force Awakens, you hear, here's Finn, here's Rey, here's Kylo Ren, randomly R2 for a second or two, and here's BB-8. You knew nothing about the plot.
Yeah.
Realistically, with Rogue One, you know what it is, and you're excited.
Yeah.
And because it's not J.J. Abrams behind the camera this time, we're going to see a different type of movie and a different type of setup. That's something Star Wars fans should be tremendously excited for.
Mm-hmm. It goes back to what I've been saying for years about Star Wars. Regardless of what anyone feels about the prequels overall in general, I will defend Revenge of the Sith until I die because it is the Darth Vader Anakin Skywalker story that we heard about in Episode 4. That we wanted to, as a kid, I wanted to know what the hell happened in the Clone Wars. In Episode 3 specifically, not Episode 1 or Episode 2, specifically gave me that story. And this is kind of the same thing where they make mention of the stolen Death Star plans in A New Hope. So we're now getting that part of the story, which I think is cool.
In theory, the final 5 minutes of this movie should be Princess Leia aboard the Tentative 4, them going towards Tatooine. The final shot of this movie should be the Star Destroyer swooping down on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because then that would be fitting tie-in to Episode 4.
Yep.
And, theoretically, this, if done right, this could... It could either sink or propel Star Wars as far as, their solo movies that aren't in the episodes. I don't see how it would tank, but... because it's Star Wars.
Yeah.
Now, I kind of wonder if they'll do movies that take place during the original trilogy. Like, would we ever see something like a Shadows of the Empire?
Probably not, unless they heavily tweaked it so that none of the, Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, and all those guys were in it. Because there's no way that they could recast between those films.
I think it's possible, but you'd have
I don't think they could because it would take away from the performance of the actual main storyline.
Yeah, I was about to say, you'd have to get people to be really on board with it.
The only thing I could see they could do with Empire is show how Lando got to Cloud City.
Or maybe bounty hunters tracking down them, because in Shadows of the Empire, you fight IG-88 and Boba Fett. Actually, in theory, you could do the story of Dash Rendar and just have the young Han Solo reprise his role for all of the 5 minutes that you'd actually need him.
Mm.
So it's not impossible. Because I think Shadows of the Empire was one of the strongest expanded universe things that was ever done, and Lucas considered it canon for years. So it would be cool if they could pull that off.
Now, do you think we'll see the Emperor show up to some degree, even if it's just a Supreme Leader Snoke kind of role?
I don't think Supreme Leader Snoke's going to show up in Rogue One.
No, I'm not saying Snoke himself, but I'm saying how he showed up in The Force Awakens, that hologram capacity.
I would assume so. If Ian McDaniel or McDermott, whatever his last name is, if he can still...
Because all he'd have to do is, they could digitally...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then he could just do the voiceover.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And even if he didn't, they could get the guys from the Clone Wars stuff or the, Rebels or whatever to do it. So
yeah. No, I'm after seeing the trailer, I'm pretty excited to see Rogue One at this point now.
Yeah, I'm so hyped for this.
I'm more excited about seeing Rogue One than I was about Force Awakens, and I've said this before. It's not because I didn't want to see Force Awakens, not because I was excited. It's because where we all have our social media, Star Wars is everywhere. And I just wanted to be able to step away from Force Awakens and find it at my own pace. With Rogue One, I don't think they're going to have to do as much of a marketing campaign for that film that they did for Force Awakens. So I think...
Well, technically, they didn't really have to do much for Force Awakens either.
No, I know, but...
By the way, one rumor that's been floating around is, and people are grasping at straws at this point, but it's a fun speculation on this one at least. Unlike the Snoke one, which has gotten ridiculous for everything. People are trying to say that this lead role of Rogue One could possibly be Rey's mom, based on timeline.
That's entirely possible.
But she would have to be with a Jedi.
Not necessarily, because sometimes it just happens.
True.
Like, I'm pretty sure Rey's mom and dad is one of them is going to be a Skywalker. I'm almost 90% sure of that.
A Kenobi or Skywalker.
Yeah, like it's going to be something weird. I mean,
I'm
Star
almost
Wars.
gearing towards Skywalker bloodline, but
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. Although having Rey be a Kenobi would also be pretty friggin' badass.
yeah,
Because
that would prove that the Kenobi line is just as strong as the Skywalker line.
yeah,
If
and I
not.
think, and that'd be so cool too. I mean, this way we don't lose that. And that's another thing too. Ewan McGregor said, as far as I know, I know I've seen links about this. I don't know whether it's actual quotes from him though, that they would do solo Obi-Wan movies. And he's not so old that he couldn't do stuff. I mean, just because he goes on to Tatooine doesn't mean he stops doing stuff. In fact, I know there's a comic where I think it's the Marvel stuff where
He does side missions.
yeah, well, they basically go to Obi-Wan Kenobi and say, look, man, I know you're trying to protect Luke, but if you keep showing your face here, the Empire's going to show up sooner or later, and they're going to kill all of us, so back the hell off. And he's like, I'm sorry, but yeah, because, that's why Owen hates Ben, or that's why he hates Obi-Wan, is he keeps sticking his friggin' nose into it. And he's drawing the attention to Tatooine, so there's a possibility of having another Obi-Wan movie. And I think that
I could get behind that because I enjoyed Obi-Wan as a character the further he got along.
Yeah, like Ewan McGregor's a great Obi-Wan.
Yep.
And I wish that they would have kept Qui-Gon around longer, but I can see why they didn't. But what was the other thing I was gonna mention?
They could always bring him back as a Force ghost in episode 8 or 9.
Yeah, or just have him do like a voiceover or something.
Yeah.
Well, they're saying Yoda's supposed to be back in episode 8.
But again, he'll be a Force ghost. Yeah.
Well, they can't have the original, Obi-Wan show up. So
Oh yeah, because Al Guinness is totally dead.
Yeah.
yeah,
You
totally
could totally digitize them and find like a sound alike, but I'd rather have Obi-Wan during his prime.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, okay, since
Hey, old Ben, how come you're all of a sudden young again?
Yeah.
I decided I like this better.
Since Mike brought it up, we all know that Lucas, when he still had his baby, he magically digitized what's his name, Christensen, to be the new Obi-Wan, or the new Darth Vader, the new Anakin, in the at the end of Jedi. So
They didn't digitize it. They had him in an actual suit.
I know, but what I'm saying is that Hayden Christensen ended up being the new Darth Vader Force ghost. So they could do the same thing with Ewan McGregor, where instead of having Alec Guinness, you have him.
Yeah, but that would be taken away and cheapening the role that Alec Guinness played.
That's true.
They should have never put Christensen in the end of that movie. That was kind of a
I
crapshoot.
see why they did it. I think it was a little unnecessary, but I'm kind of okay with it.
Because, there is talks that he may come back to play Anakin.
If they could find a good reason for him to do so, like if they had a flashback to him.
Well, they're talking about having him as a possible Force ghost with kind of a combination. And I know this is way off left field from Rogue One, but we've gotten into Star Wars lore now, so it's different. But there was talks, like in the original script, that they were going to have the Force ghost and have him kind of a mesh between man and machine of Anakin and Vader.
Yeah, I'd be totally okay with that, because especially now that Rebels has shown how much older Anakin is in the armor, like we've seen his face more or less, I'd be okay if Hayden Christensen came back and reprised Vader, even if as long as the performance was really strong.
Yeah.
Admittedly, he was terrible in Attack of the Clones. But
Attack of the Clones was terrible altogether
Yeah.
because that was actually the first film in motion picture history that was entirely digitally done.
yeah, and when you let Anakin perform, or when you let Christensen get a little bit out of his comfort zone in number 3 in Sith, he got better. I mean, especially that last fight with like Obi-Wan. He was intense. I loved him in Sith. So if he thinks he's grown as an actor and under the right director, I'd be absolutely okay with him coming back, because I like that Darth Vader. I mean, sure, strike me down as you're not a real Star Wars fan. Fuck you. He's still cool, and he still could realistically pull it off, and he's at the right age now, because he's got to be in his 30s at least now.
Yeah, and he's got the height down too, so
Yeah.
he could easily be in the suit as well.
Exactly. I mean, just let him do it. Give him make the role count. Don't just do it for the sake of him being there. If you can make it work, go for it.
And the other thing, I don't know if do you guys watch How It Should Have Ended?
No, surprisingly, I've actually never seen one episode of that show, but it always shows up in my feed.
It's actually pretty funny, like Flash animation type setup. They kind of rewrite movies and poke fun at them, but it's in a fun way. So they did like the entire thing with The Force Awakens. Well, they did an alternate one of How It Should Have Ended, and it's a lot shorter, but it doesn't go through the entire movie. There's a part where General Hux is going to Snoke, who they have him set up to look like Gollum.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
And like I said, they're making fun of it, and Kylo Ren's sitting there whining, and Hux is like, never mind. And then he like leaves, and they're like, what? And he's like, my process. And so you see all of a sudden a rebel Death Star come from around the planet and blow away Starkiller Base.
Jesus.
And Finn's on the base with Leia, and he's like, you just blew away Rey. She says, yeah, I killed my kid too. So and then future Spock comes over and he says the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one or the few or whatever, and then they end it. And it was like, well, they could have, because they had the Death Star plans, they could have fixed the exhaust shaft hole and then used it as a way to fight the Empire.
Good Lord.
I don't know, I just thought it was funny because
Star Wars.
possibilities.
Yes, possibilities.
So
Bot.
I think
Wait, huh?
so quickly get to that, and then we will
Get out of here.
Yeah.
So, BotCon, the last fun pub BotCon is this weekend here in Louisville, Kentucky. It is at the Galt House Hotel, which I have no idea why it's at the Galt. I understand why the Galt House is the hotel, but there are plenty of other places in downtown Louisville for them to have the actual convention. Anyway, April 7th.
Welcome to the money, Mike.
Yeah. April 7th to the 10th is BotCon. You can come and meet David Kay, Greg Berger, Aaron Archer, Judd Nelson. Of course, for Judd Nelson, you got to pay $200 to meet him.
What?
Actually, it's more than that because you got to buy one of the higher end packages.
No, I looked at the website. You can buy just a you can buy the general admission pass plus the non-package version of the Judd Nelson Golden ticket is $189. So it's just over $200 just to
Kiss my ass, Denver.
Yeah. So the coolest thing about this, and we already had this episode on GCRN ATTF. I interviewed Stan Bush, caught up with him. He's in the works of a new album for next year. But he and Vince DiCola are reteaming up for a panel at BotCon Friday morning, the 8th of April, and then Friday night they're going to do a free concert here at 4th Street Live, which is our entertainment district downtown. It's going to be really, really awesome. So I can't wait to go to that, because the cool thing about the concert is it's a free concert. You don't need to actually have to be a BotCon attendee to actually go. Anybody can just show up. So,
See, Mike, I really think you missed an opportunity this year to apply for
I know.
media badge. Man, that would have been so cool just to go hang out.
BotCon does not give media badges.
Yeah.
What?
They do not. There was only one source that got them last year when I went, and you either have to work there or you have to be TF Radio.
Immediately.
Yeah, and the only thing that I really wanted out of this BotCon was to actually meet Judd Nelson if I was actually going to go to the convention. I'm more than fine, because I've got 3 different friends that have come into town for BotCon. I've got Lady of Rec on Twitter, at Optibotamus, and our buddy Joe Reed from Off the Cuff, and he does the Turtles stuff on the pull bag with me. So I'm more than fine just meeting up and hanging out with them and going to the Stan Bush concert, the Stan Bush and Vince Nicola concert. When's the
You need to hang out with Stan, bitch. You be going backstage. Buddy, hook me up.
Who knows? We'll see. Yeah.
I'll call him right now.
No, don't.
Stan, buddy.
Knock it off. So yeah, BotCon is this weekend. It's going to be an absolute blast.
Yep. And speaking of conventions, next week, and I'll talk about it more next week, but I will be going to Midwest Media Expo because I won a contest. So I get to go for free.
Are they covering your travel or your hotel or what?
It's a 45-minute drive for me.
Oh, well, whoopie fucking do.
Yeah. So I'm driving.
Take away from your experience, just so I'm clear.
I'll be driving on that Saturday morning, going just Saturday, and then coming home Saturday night. But I got free weekend pass for it, and so yeah, I'm pretty pumped to go. They're gonna have. I gotta pull up the site. There we go. Midwest. I know this is not.
Okay, so since Steve is pulling in this, I'm going to bring this tie back into Star Wars. Apparently, Build-A-Bear Workshop debuts full-size Wicket the Ewok stuffed animal.
No, thank you.
It looks kind of cool. I like the fact that it's got sound clips in it. I'm curious to know which ones they are. Mm-hmm. And the Build-A-Bear Star Wars things are really, really cool. Blair got me a First Order Stormtrooper, and she got Chewbacca. They're really, really well made. I really want a Boba Fett at some point. Actually, yeah, I've got a Clone Trooper. I've got Clone Trooper Rex from there. I got Darth Panda and a bunch of other ones. Actually, I got a bunch of these things. Although the Build-A-Bear C-3PO looks like a gimp. It looks like he's wearing a sexual slave outfit. It's so. Oh god!
So get that link up, Steve.
Yes, I do. Thankfully. So the guests for the convention this year are Billy West, Kyle Hebert, Jeffrey Combs, Richard Horowitz, Greg Wiseman, John St. John, Steve Downs, Chris Avalone.
And when is this, Steve?
Jason Marsden. Then there's a bunch of cosplayers and writers that are on it. It is next weekend.
You should try and get an interview with Kyle. I can help.
It's going to be the 16th.
Facilitate that. So make sure you and I touch base, and I'll try and put you in contact with him, and maybe you can work something out.
Sounds good.
Because we need to do more Cyber Dragon Balls, and that's the announcer. Yes. I'm pretty sure we couldn't get any more Dragon Ball Z-ish than that.
Funny thing is I actually we got comments on that podcast.
Did people hate us?
No, they liked it. They were actually like, "Oh, we didn't know you did a Dragon Ball Z podcast. That's awesome." Blah blah blah. So they were really connecting with the video game aspect of it. So good stuff there. So anything else you guys want to promote before we go to the next clip?
Well, for me, for Twig, I've had to take a couple of days off. I've taken the last 2 weeks off. I've been really sick. I'm hoping to get the topic show on Batman v Superman out next week sometime. I do have episodes recorded of other shows. I'm going to try and get Nerd News out tomorrow, ideally. So by the time you hear this, hopefully it'll be out Friday, if not Saturday at the latest, as I've changed the release schedule to just be over the weekend now. Got some pretty major medical news coming up at some point, so I may be going in for major surgery towards the end of this year. I don't know. So hopefully I don't, die. So yeah, that's fun. So yeah, other than that, things are still moving forward. We're gonna do Game of Thrones this month as the big topic show. I'm rewatching all 5 seasons right now. I'm working through A Song of Ice and Fire. Jesus Christ, this book is huge. George R.R. Martin does not hold back. Jesus. But yeah, so good stuff coming up. So winter is coming. Just saying.
By the time this releases, we will have released episode 10 of Mayhem Mics, which is WrestleMania 32, which is kind of funny because we released it 3 days after our 1-year anniversary of starting the show last year with WrestleMania 31. So it's been about a year since we've been doing Mayhem Mics over on GCR. I've got the pull bag coming up. We got the next 2 He-Man issues for Eternity War. And just a whole bunch of other stuff. Just head on over to geekcastradio.com. We've got 7+ years of content.
And as for myself, I just recorded a video, Altered Geek, which I mentioned earlier in the show. And the concept is I'm hoping to get one out every week at this point now, depending. And then, obviously, I'm going to be doing the Midwest Media Expo, which I'm going to I'm going to enjoy every aspect of it. Plus, because I won that contest and it had to do with an art design thing, I get signatures on my art from everybody that's attending.
Sweet.
As far as the media. So I get autographs, and I don't have to go get them. They'll be on my sheet of my design. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to that. So stay tuned for the next clip.
They'll be on your sheet. That sounded so wrong.
Oh, go take a sheet.
You're listening to Altered Gaming. So, on this week's Altered Gaming, we've got 4 news articles. The first being 2016's Call of Duty may be set in space. Yes, that's right, you've heard in space, and it's kind of interesting because in my mind, that kind of sets up a kind of modernistic Unreal Tournament. So, I'm kind of interested to see this. I've not played a Call of Duty since like the Nintendo GameCube days, so this is going to be really weird for me. And I haven't played any of the modern ones. I know that the recent Call of Duty, I don't know which one it was called, but I know that it moves really fast, and it's that new first-person shooter, speedy kind of shot blast that you get in everything. Because the new Unreal Tournament that's coming out, or that's been in alpha for the longest time, is set up the same way. So I'm kind of interested to see how that kind of turns out. But at the same token, I'm not a huge whereas I'm kind of jumbling over my words here, but the Call of Duty set in space, because it's a Call of Duty, I probably won't get it, even though that's kind of an interesting concept, only because you're going to have, and this is kind of petty on my part, but I don't like it when the vast majority of everyone playing is going to spawn kill me. Whereas like Unreal Tournament, I'm pretty damn good in that game. And Battlefield 4, I'm pretty good too, but Call of Duty is an entirely different beast onto itself. Next up is Mass Effect Andromeda gameplay footage emerges. And it clearly shows a jetpack, which would be an awesome feature if they added that. Only because it was such a pain to have to run back and forth and jump across things and figure out ways of getting on top of areas that were hard to get to. I hope that this is actually Andromeda footage, but the jetpack is a really cool feature. I cannot wait for Andromeda only because I enjoyed the last Mass Effect trilogy, thanks to Birdman Dodd. So, how many of you guys enjoyed or have played Mass Effect? I'm just kind of curious there. My first experience was last year, so I'm not entirely sure what to expect from this, but it was definitely a fun game. So moving on, Microsoft artists list the next Xbox as Xbox NEXT, so NX or Next. I'm kind of on the fence of this, only because I've recently decided to abandon consoles altogether. And it's not because I don't enjoy them. I still have my Xbox 360. I still play it. I still play Battlefield and Deadpool, Transformers, Batman, all of that stuff on my Xbox 360. The only thing that kind of curbed me from going to an Xbox One was not only the price and the fact I can't afford it, but the fact that it's basically a glorified PC. And if I really wanted to do that, I'll just hook a wire HDMI and USB through my wall from my PC to my TV and just sit in my living room and play. It's not really, I don't know, in my best interest for that. But I do find that this is a little interesting because they don't like the idea of going into an Xbox 1.5. They're not too keen on that. They just want a brand new system rather than or an upgraded Xbox One rather than have a partial upgrade. It's going to be a substantial upgrade. So we might see something from the PlayStation side of things. But speaking of PlayStation, it sounds like because of the announcement with Microsoft and being able to play some stuff on between multi-console type setup, the PS4 games should be able to play in the future on a PC or a Mac. And all you would need is a DualShock 4 controller and connect to the internet and happy play. So what they're saying is remote play is compatible with Windows 8.1, Windows 10, or later OS X 10.10 and OS X 10.11. And you can select resolution and frame rate options depending on the speed of the network available. The selection of ways to play resolution options are 360 for 540, 720. The default resolution is 540. The frame rate standard is 30 frame rate. High is 60 frame rate. The default frames are 30. So that actually sounds really interesting because that would be kind of essential in the fact that if you didn't want to have, or somebody was using the television or you wanted to play in a different room and you had your computer set up and you wanted to play that PlayStation game or that kind of setup, you could do it. And that to me, I think is kind of important of this cross-compatibility thing is, just like the announcement of Xbox Live doing, connecting their PC and their Windows or their console users to play games. I think that's kind of a smart direction that all this is going because it's, like I said, they've all become glorified PCs. So in doing this, it kind of helps that gap and allows you more playability rather than being kind of stuck to that one place. I wonder how that would work if you were like on vacation and you wanted to play your Xbox or your PlayStation games. How that would work. Kind of an interesting thing to think about there. But that's it for the Altered Gaming. So coming next, I have some other geeky content.
Oh, yes. Hello. I'm Megatron, and you're listening to Altered Geek Unlimited. Excellent. Yes.
Welcome back to Altered Geek Unlimited. This part of the show, we're going to cover the altered tech. So I've been wanting to kind of cover a little bit of tech, but I've been kind of waiting for a bunch of it to kind of pile up. And some of the fun things that have kind of come up over the last few weeks, and it's kind of dating back to March a little bit with some of it, but some of it not so much. It turns out that some researchers have devised a skin that suppresses radar and another that it mirrors light, so they're getting kind of an invisibility cloak-ish type setup going now. Just, much in the same vein of the aluminum that could be transparent, much like Star Trek. This is kind of an interesting thing because this is much like a Harry Potter type of thing with the cloakish setup. But they're showing that on a microscopic scale. Obviously, this is about the same scenario as the other thing. They're saying that it's measuring barely 80 nanometers thick and only large enough to cover a few biological cells. But they're saying that they're starting to figure out ways to block out all of that stuff, which is kind of a cool concept. The only thing is you might end up having people spying on you that you don't know about. Hopefully it's only in government situations, but it's kind of an interesting thing. And then, of course, jumping back to the Google Fiber that we were talking about a few years back, too, Google launches Google Fiber Phone for those who can't ditch landlines. Now, I don't personally know anyone that has a landline. Even my grandparents don't have it anymore. I don't see the use in it. But I guess if you own a business from home, or you make an insanely amount of calls that you need it, or you need a fax line or something. But it does say that this is Google Fiber Phone. They're giving Fiber Phone users unlimited free calling to numbers in the U.S. or Canada. For other countries, calls cost the same as they would via Google Voice. That doesn't mean Fiber Phone is the cheapest way to replace your landline. At $10 a month, it's priced on par with Vonage, though both are quite a bit more expensive than what Magic Jack and Ooma offer. They're saying that it's about comfort and you don't have to switch. The only thing is you have to add it to your fiber plan. So that's how you keep the price cheap. But you have to also have Google Fiber to get it. So I guess it's kind of a cool thing if you got fiber, but if you don't, it's probably not worth you getting. But I guess if you're attached to your landline and you got Google Fiber and insanely fast internet speeds, then you might as well go for it. I myself have had a cell phone for better part of a decade and haven't had a landline since I first moved out, so I don't see the use in it, but that's just me. So, moving on, I'm going to go to the next clip, which will be the Altered Geek News Network. We'll be back after this.
You're listening to the Altered Geek News Network.
Welcome back to the AGNN. I'm your host, Steve Megatron Phillips, and in this part of the show, I'll be talking about a great deal of things. That sounded so stupid. Great deal of things. We just had recently the Star Wars Episode 7 DVD Blu-ray drop. We've gotten various news dropped since BVS came out, which I'll drop a little bit on that to start out, sifting through my news. So they're hinting softly that Darkseid's coming, which obviously we got from the thing. I'm doing clip notes of some of these news because there's so many of them that came out over the last week. Zack Snyder states that Robin was killed 10 years ago in a run-in with the young Joker. Kind of not a surprise there, but okay. Fans have petitioned for an R-rated cut for the theater screenings, which, why? For one, there aren't enough of the fans that 100% enjoyed the film to put an R-rated version. Plus, you're going to get it on the disc anyway, so what's the point? It was already dark enough. Now, that also goes in hand with the other petition that fans have started to get Zack Snyder off the Justice League films. And then that also goes hand in hand. I'm going to get tired of me saying that, but they're saying that the Wonder Woman movie's been moved up 2 weeks to earlier in June, I believe, and then they're going to have 2 more DC films come out that are untitled as of yet. Speculation as to what that is, nobody knows. So then, of course, we've seen a couple shots of the first Amazons from the upcoming Wonder Woman movie. There's been about 4 Amazonians there with Wonder Woman included. Wonder Woman actress says that more movies need to have female superheroes, which so far DC's really the only one going to have a solo superhero film that's got a female lead, so kudos to DC for doing something right. What Marvel's problem in that territory is, I have no idea, considering there's 2 Star Wars movies with a female lead that have done, or one that hasn't come out yet, one that has, and it's done extremely well, even though it's a flip-flop retelling of A New Hope, which everybody's had fun watching the side-by-side video after the fact, which is kind of funny. I find it interesting that everybody's like hating on Batman v Superman, yet everybody's liking it too. Like, was it perfect? No. And I know Mike and I talked about it last week, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's just retreading the same territory. But I found it to be kind of, to me, and like I said, I think I summed it up best when Wonder Woman, Alfred, and Batman were the best scenes of that whole movie. A lot of it was like, I don't know what was going on, but did I enjoy it as a movie? Like just going and watching a Shut My Brain Off movie? Yes, I enjoyed it. But for the coherentness of it, again, that would fall on the writers, and everybody's blaming Snyder because he's the public face of the film. Yes, it's his vision of taking the script from there, but it's still the writer. So just like Green Lantern, it's still the writer. So enough with the BVS that is, or the BS that is BVS. Yeah, so moving on from that mess, superhero movies with not movies, TV shows such as Supergirl and The Flash score the highest ratings on that episode, which is kind of a no surprise, no brainer there. I would love to see more of that. On The Flash, Katie Cassidy, aka Black Canary, Laura Lance, is to appear as Earth 2 Black Siren. And spoiler alert for anyone that's well, I'll just say spoiler alert and then I'll pause for a couple seconds. Anybody that's seen Arrow this week should know that it was very saddening to see this happen to a character from season 1, and it ties into this scenario with Laura Lance, but yeah, she apparently is no more, and that's the grave that was at the beginning, but she'll live again on Earth 2, so ending with that, Legends of Tomorrow, they are suggesting that next season they're going to have a new cast, which is kind of cool. I am fine with that, because if they keep the premise of the show but they change the cast every season and the mission every season, I think that it could be very well off. It would be what Heroes was supposed to be but did terribly at, which was starting over. But this would also mean that with various heroes departing from Flash and Arrow, they could bring some of these people back into the fold of those two shows and replenish Legends of Tomorrow with new casts, now that they've got the foothold behind it. But Mark Guggenheim has a few insights on where the Wave Rider might be headed or not. When asked if the show had any plans to include Batman Beyond, his answer made it seem unlikely. He says, "I don't think so, only because of DC's plans for Batman. Look, I love Terry McGinnis. I love that whole Batman Beyond concept. Star City 2046 was sort of our handed the cap to Batman Beyond in many, many ways, but you never know." Personally, I think this would be an awesome addition, as having Batman Beyond, because we've never seen that in live action. And honestly, it would be nice to see a lighthearted Batman that's got the future tech and that's, I think it would be really fun, because you could, instead of having everyone coming from the same time period like this is, except for Rip Hunter, you could have a diverse, like you could have Jonah Hex be on there, you could have Batman Beyond, you could have Booster Gold, you could have Blue Beetle, you could have Nightwing, you could have a multitude of characters and give it a nice gambit of characters and not have this tied downness of one time period. You could have that they're defending against, Brainiac or something. I mean, there's plenty of villains in the DC universe that they could pull from. So, I mean, it's not like they don't have this pool to grab from, but I think it would be really neat if they did that, or if they even added, at points, Green Arrow and Flash, just to kind of tie in there, or they had to jump dimensions and bring Supergirl in, for a couple episodes. I think that would kind of strengthen Legends of Tomorrow, and I would really like to see it go in that direction. But they said that the team next season, the show is not going to have a brand new cast next year. The poster is going to look almost the same, which is kind of unfortunate. I was getting into this. I kind of was hoping that they would replace most of the cast, but I think it would be better if they went in the direction they went earlier on, and they had everybody go back to their times and then kind of pull from random directions. But I don't know. I'm enjoying Legends of Tomorrow a little bit more now because they're not. I mean, yes, it is against Vandal Savage, but they're kind of also jumping all over the place, and it's kind of getting more about the cast and less about the have to stop Vandal Savage, blah blah blah. So that about rounds out for the Altered Geek News Network. So until the next clip.
Welcome to the Wicked Radio Network.
Want to interact with the show? You can contact us in the following ways. You can call the voicemail line 502-526-5821. You can email us feedback@geekcastradio.com. You can visit the episode post on geekcastradio.com or alteredgeek.com. You can get a hold of us on Twitter @alteredgeek. Look for us every week on geekcastradio.com, of course, Stitcher Smart Radio, iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, and alteredgeek.com. And now, back to the show.
And we're back with Altered Geek Unlimited. So, rounding out this episode, we have the listener comments. So, we were having a discussion last week on Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes and how they present information. And thankfully, SuperFilmFan98 kind of clued us in a little bit, because I'm a little bit ignorant on some of those sites because I don't use them particularly, and I know Blanchard doesn't either. He's less apt to read a critic review than I am. I'm a little bit more open to it, and I was kind of having a little bit of discussion about it. We had great critics like Roger Ebert and Leonard Maltin, who still does some reviews, but not really. And there's some websites I'll read reviews from, and he mentioned even that he goes to like Film Spotting or Slash Film, and he would listen to like Leonard Maltin a little bit, and Roger Ebert. While I enjoyed Ebert on his stuff, and I could get behind some of his reasonings for everything, I didn't necessarily agree with him on everything, but I did understand him. So I always used to watch his show as a kid, and even through my teenage years, and I always found it interesting. So I definitely get that. I don't really pay attention too much to the fan ratings per se, but Superfilm Fan says that Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes use the same information. They just present it differently. The issue with Rotten Tomatoes isn't Rotten Tomatoes, is how people don't understand how it works. It's just a percentage of positive reviews, which makes it hard to judge because of how low some of those negative reviews are, or how high the positive reviews are. You can't compare movies to movies because each movie has a different number of reviews and different people reviewing them. So, for instance, Batman v Superman has nearly 100 more reviews than Daredevil, for example. Also, the user score for BVS has dropped to like 79%, which will probably drop even lower when more people see it. Rotten Tomatoes does give you an average score, and BVS is about 5 out of 10, which is about right if you ask me. Deadpool is like 6.5 out of 10, which isn't much better, but its Rotten Tomatoes score is like 50% points higher, so it gives the false impression that critics love Deadpool so much more than BVS when it wasn't that big of a difference. If you don't just look at the RT score on face value and actually look more into it, you'll get a much better picture of what the overall opinion of the movie was. He says, personally, I wasn't and would rank it like a 4 or 5 out of 10. I might disagree with that a little bit more. Like, I might give it a 6 because the only redeeming aspects of it, again, was we got a witty, helpful Alfred, much like Batman the Animated Series. We got to see Wonder Woman on film for the first time. And we got to see Batman use his detective skills. We got to see both sides, Bruce Wayne and Batman. and we get to see a lot of the suit was awesome, the car was awesome, a lot of the stuff he did was awesome. So I mean, those redeeming qualities right there, I would give it a 6 out of 10. I agree it's not a perfect movie. I'm not going to argue that. I totally understand where it falls on the ratings and on the scale. I did find Deadpool to be more entertaining and coherent of a movie and more fun. But I also see that it's not a perfect film either. But it is, you know what you're getting with Deadpool. This, I don't think anybody really knew what they were getting the entire time it was coming. And I think that was part of the problem. But Super Film Fan 98 also continues. He says, I think people misunderstand the purpose of movie criticism, to be honest. Movie critics are, by all means, experts in film, for the most part, and use their review to delve into things most general fans won't. Which, I totally agree there. Totally agree. Like, I've gotten to know a little bit of the film industry because I'm studying to work in the film industry. So, I'm in a screenwriting class right now. We're having to write our pilot, or getting ready to write our pilot. And that's going to be my intro to my superhero genre that I'm creating, my series that I'm creating. And so like I'm totally getting this aspect of, you have to understand each level of the beast. Like there's, you're looking at the audio is a separate part, the video is a separate part, like the screenwriting, the directing, the actors, like everything comes into play and can create this cohesive, excellent film or a pile of garbage. It just depends on how well each player fits into this puzzle. But yeah, you got to understand every aspect of it. But anyways, he says critics know people will go see BVS, Transformers, or the Avengers no matter what they say. For me, critics are translators. They take the art of film and break down its meaning and purpose. Critics can explain where the camera goes and, crucially, why it goes there, hinting at a more analytical, interpretive understanding of a film. Yes, that can also be done on an individually standpoint, but there is a benefit for someone who has a degree in film or long studied to art form to provide insight that would be unseen by the novice. That is the downside of star ratings and RT scores. Geeks and fans will scream from high heavens that critics are wrong, which is missing the point because rarely is that person actually reading the review they are complaining about. When I hear people say things like fans know more than critics, I find it a tad laughable. Fans are more forgiving to critics as is the nature. A critic should review a film for what it is and not incorporate fandom when it comes to rating a film like we may. They should judge it based on its own merits, so a film like BVS will get slammed because there are major storytelling problems that hold it back from being a good movie. That's not saying a bad movie still can't be entertaining, which I totally agree with everything that he's just said. Now, if you would have talked to me 7 years ago when we had Movie Week in Review, like the initial episodes, yeah, Mike and I bashed the crap out of critics left and right based on scores and based on certain keywords that they were saying that were singled out by somebody that didn't agree with them. So, totally get where that's coming from. My evolution over the last 7 years is I've gotten to understand it and I've gotten to appreciate what it is that they're trying to say and kind of try and look at things a little bit more analytically. Is this still going to be one of those movies that I enjoy and I like and it's one of my favorites? Probably because I enjoy those aspects that I mentioned before that make it good to me. The rest of the film, I'm quite frank, I'll probably fast forward through it. But that's being said, I still didn't care for the Nolan verse all that much either. I liked The Dark Knight, but I didn't like some aspects of that film either. I didn't like The Dark Knight Rises, and I didn't like Batman Begins. So that, again, these all kind of go hand in hand. I haven't really fully enjoyed a Batman movie ever. And I think that's part of my problem. I'm a DC fan, but in animation, and I was having this conversation on Twitter the other day, that we were kind of going back and forth, and they were more or less saying that when fans sit there and bash on something, they don't do it. They do it as a fan. They don't do it as like being realistic. Like somebody says, because like somebody was giving a death threat in the comments area about differences of opinion. People beating with a shovel over opinion. Somebody said, we had a conversation going with a couple different podcasters. They were saying that they can't envision people getting that worked up over a comics universe. Fanboys should be can be wondrous to behold, and then another one says it's downright embarrassing, and then somebody, the other guy said, again, we Dark Horse people are far more civilized than those Marvel people or DC people. And it says, for too many fanboys, the lack of self-awareness is their superpower. To which I replied, my self-awareness, I said, I am a DC fanboy on the animated and television side of things. Marvel in films and IDW in comics. And, basically, you know where you stand kind of thing. So it was funny to me to kind of have this conversation, because years ago I probably would have taken offense to some of that, but I'm having fun with it now. Like, and even a year ago, I would think I was in a darker place mentally, because like a lot of this would have offended me as far as going back and forth with them changing too much stuff and with, how the film turned out. And I find it to be, like I said, quite entertaining. Now, on the other part of the comments that we had, and I briefly brought this up in last episode with King of Kongs, and it was mentioned earlier in the episode with TFG1 Mike and Birdman Dodd. We are having the top 50 video game countdown, franchise countdown coming. And you can vote now. It's at the top of the website. There's a link that you'll click there. I did, since the last episode, because I'd forgotten in the shuffle. It was supposed to come out almost a month ago, and there was extenuating circumstances that prevented me from getting all of these things done. So I further amended some of the rules at the top of it before you make the submissions. And I made it function much like the top 100. And I had some questions posed, so I kind of put that in there. It's kind of based on a variety of aspects, whether it's your favorite, highest quality, popularity, evolution, longevity. You kind of have to kind of mesh a lot of that together, because like I do have my biases. Like, yes, I love the Arkham games, but are they perfect? No. Do I love the Battlefield games? Do they belong in the, to be number one? No. So like there are things that you kind of have to weigh based on a variety of things. The storytelling, like how long the series has been around, how well it's evolved, the popularity of it. It's these things go all hand in hand, and I had a real, and mind you, I only put about 43 out of the 50 for my own list, because a lot of my games I play are in a franchise of one of those capacities. So like if you put Super Mario Brothers, that can encompass Super Mario Brothers 1 through 3, the new Super Mario Brothers, and Super Mario Brothers 2, not Super Mario World. So like, I'm going based on the titles. So like Halo, that would cover the entire Halo franchise. Battlefield, the entire Battlefield. Arkham, that would be the entire Arkham series, like including Origins, because they're all, even though it wasn't Rocksteady that made it, it's still the same. It's the same storyline. So I mean, you kind of have to piece all these things together, and that's kind of what I was hoping for with this, is that we could alleviate the need for, Batman to show up 4 times, or Battlefield to show up 3 times, Call of Duty to show up 5 times, Halo to show up 3 times, stuff like that. And because if we had a top 100, let's be for real, a lot of those would show up a lot, and it would be an extremely unbalanced list, because there would be a lot of things left off. And that's why we kind of opted, when we were talking about it, to do the franchise setup, because there's less franchises than there are games. And when I say that, I mean, like I said, there's like 5-10 games in a franchise. You eliminate the need for 10 of them to show up on the list. So anyways, it'll be tabulated in a multitude of ways, which we'll discuss in the opening and initial podcast, which will cover 50 through 26 in that episode. And then the second episode, which will be the 25 through 1 and the wrap-up. It will be a 2-episode podcast. The voting round, actually the cutoff for the open entry into the submissions is April 20th. I'm doing it at such a short interval of 2 weeks because, and if there's not enough submissions, I may extend it and it'll have to be pushed another week, which I'm kind of hoping not, but if so, it just happens that way. I'm hoping to get enough people by then, and then I'm shooting for April 22nd to release part 1, and then April 29th, part 2 of the podcast. So the only thing that we're requiring in this particular episode, or in this particular submission form, you do have to give at least your top 10. So like number 1 is your number 1 of all, of your countdown, of your all-time, favorite franchises. And then, I'm just requiring that you do 1 through 10. If you decide to go beyond that and go down to the 50, great. If you don't, you don't have to. But at least with doing the 10, it still gives enough of the franchises a placement in the top 50, and it allows you to still vote. Because I don't want people to be, feeling like they can't have a say if they don't have an entire 50. And that's kind of, I'm trying to kind of balance the waters here. I did require that you have to put in an email and a name, but it's more so the email is so that I have a way of notifying everyone when we're going to be doing the release, if they so choose. The name part, you don't have to put your real last name. It's just so that I know who's voting. You can put a geek name or a common name or Twitter name, whatever, in the last name. It's just so that we can help do that. And then if you have a 50 and you'd rather do an Excel document, you can upload there. But again, this entire list is put together by you, the fans, with us, and I'm hoping that this garners a fun top 50. And at the end of this top 50 countdown, we'll be teasing the next upcoming event from GeekCastRadio.com. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope it's not too long-winded for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the segments. If you have any questions or anything that you'd like to drop in the comments section or email me, feedback at geekcastradio.com, or contact on Twitter at Altered Geek or myself at SCP21. Feel free to do so. So until next time, I've been Steve Megatron Phillips saying get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks.